As we head into the New Hampshire primary, a national nonprofit is shining light on food insecurity.
So according to Hunger Free America, 1 in 13 New Hampshire residents live below the poverty line. And joining us via Skype to discuss what candidates have the best plans to address this very important issue is Joel Berg. He is CEO of Hunger for America, and he joins us now. Thanks so much for being with us, Joel.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for highlighting this vital issue.
Of course. So tell us just a little bit about the data in New Hampshire, what you see there in terms of food insecurity.
Well, it's one of the least hungry states in the union, and hunger is endemic in New Hampshire. So my point is, if you see this problem in a state like New Hampshire, which has a poverty rate slightly lower than the national average, you can only imagine what a problem it is nationwide. And it will play a very significant role, hunger and poverty and homelessness and the lack of economic opportunity in the New Hampshire primary, all the upcoming primaries. About 14% of all the voters who voted in the last Democratic primary in New Hampshire had incomes below $30,000 a year, and about a third of all voters had incomes below $50,000 a year. So again, if this is a big issue in New Hampshire, we can only imagine what a big issue it's going to be in Nevada and South Carolina and all these Super Tuesday states with very low levels of income. And in New Hampshire, at least 1 in 15 workers are working full time and still can't always afford the food they need. So it's a very serious issue.
Yeah, so Joel, let's talk more about that, because it's not just, obviously nobody's running on hunger itself, it's an endemic of a poverty problem. So what issues do you see what candidate platforms do you see resonating the most, particularly with those, you said 1 in 3 voters last time around were below the poverty line or below $50,000 in median household income. So let's tease that out. What are the policies that most excite them when they go to the polls?
Well, I can tell you Hunger Free America is a 501c3 nonprofit group, so we're not allowed to rate the candidates.
Sure.
I can say, because he's out of the race now, the one candidate that most specifically addressed hunger in America was Julian Castro, who's now out of the race. But what I can say is voters want someone who has a concrete, comprehensive, realistic plan. We've done polling on this, and we found that when hunger and poverty are placed in the context of broader economic opportunity, when people understand that the reason we have so much hunger and poverty, and 37 million Americans struggle against hunger nationwide, is because the middle class is declining. So voters understand that when candidates are addressing specifically issues such as increasing jobs, increasing wages, ensuring an adequate safety net, ensuring that there are policies that can help them save on taxes and put money in the bank to develop assets over time, those are policies that the voters will strongly support. Some of the candidates more than others are highlighting this more, but I don't know that any of them, frankly, have really focused as specifically on poverty issues as we would like. The generic sort of discussion of isn't inequality bad has not necessarily translated into comprehensive plans to tackle hunger and poverty in America.
I think that's a really interesting point. And I mean, at the same time, with the way money in politics works, we know that the rich have their voices disproportionately heard in this town, which makes it hard to mobilize around an anti-poverty agenda. What do you know, though, about how that translates into voter turnout? How do lower income voters tend to turn out and participate in elections versus upper income voters?
But I also say there's a lot of media attention on online donors, as if that's low income or working class people. If you look at the zip codes people are donating online, even to the most progressive candidates, they tend to be upper income zip codes. So it's really the billionaire donors versus the upper middle class donors. We do know, however, that low income voters in general vote a little less frequently than upper income voters. The gap isn't as big as people think, and low income people vote more than they think. And particularly in South Carolina, 61% of Democratic primary voters in 2016 came from households of $50,000 or below. Unfortunately, for wealthy people, there's a cycle of empowerment. And what I mean by that is they donate more frequently. And then they vote more frequently, and their elected officials tend to pick up their calls, take their calls, return their calls, and then result in policy outcomes for upper income Americans. Low income people don't have money to give to campaigns. They vote at least slightly less frequently, and then sometimes elected officials are less responsive to their needs. So wealthy people say, aha, engaging in politics is a smart investment, and low-income people say, wait a second, this isn't working for me. Why bother? There's a lot of focus among progressive circles about voter disenfranchisement and voter suppression, and those are all very serious issues. They're all serious racial bases for those suppressions, but progressives got to get real that the top reason low-income people don't vote, and all Americans don't vote as much as they should be, is that they don't think candidates are addressing their concerns. In many states where there was low turnout in the last presidential election, those places like Pennsylvania, the state was run by Democrats who wanted a higher turnout. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia were run by Democrats who wanted a higher turnout. And the bottom line is people did not feel that their votes mattered. They did not feel that their votes counted. They did not feel they could make a difference in the political system. And that's why if candidates want to win, not only the primaries and the caucuses, but general elections, they have to have real solutions to real problems. We at Hunger Free America strongly support more funding for the SNAP program, what used to be called the food stamps program. But the reality is even most SNAP recipients don't see their futures as, oh, we just want a life with more and better social welfare programs. They want higher jobs that pay a living wage and more affordable health care, housing, childcare. And so that's what they're really looking in.
That's
candidates.
a great point.
I think that's such a good point, and it frustrates me to no end, too, when candidates blame the voters for not showing up to vote. It's like, no, you have to give people a reason to believe in this process, to believe that their vote is actually going to matter and make a difference for them.
I blame both. Every citizen, no matter how crappy the messages are, this stuff really matters. The Supreme Court really matters for poor people policy. Everyone should vote, and if they don't like candidates, get better ones.
All right. Well,
Joel,
thank you, Joel.
Thank you. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Well, more Rising for you right after this.